It was late, 3 a.m. to be exact, when the phone vibrated, the sound slicing through the silence of the dark room. Emma's heart skipped. She hesitated before picking it up, almost expecting a call from Ryan. But the screen read, "We need to talk." Her breath caught in her throat. It had been weeks since they'd last spoken, the time zone differences stretching out like an insurmountable wall. What could it be? She felt a coldness spread through her chest, her fingers trembling as she tapped the message open. The words were brief. "I'm seeing someone else." That was it. No explanation. No excuses. Just that one line, like a dagger to the heart. Her head spun. Was this what all the waiting had been for? The past few years spent texting, calling, crying. For this? She wanted to scream, but nothing came out. Instead, she just stared at the screen, feeling her world break apart with every passing second. She had never expected this, not like this. The silence after reading those words felt deafening, and Emma could hardly breathe. Emma sat there staring at the phone, as if the message might change if she looked at it long enough. The room around her seemed to grow colder, and the walls seemed to close in on her. She wanted to believe it was a mistake, a typo, or some cruel prank. But, deep down, she knew it wasn't. Her mind replayed every conversation, every text, and every moment they'd shared. There had been no sign of this. No warning. Ryan had promised her they would be together someday. But now, she wasn't sure if he ever truly meant it. The silence that followed the message was suffocating. Was it all a lie? Every moment, every plan, was it all just something she'd imagined? She didn't know how long she sat there, but eventually, her hand reached for the phone. Maybe he would explain. Maybe there was more to it. But when her fingers hovered over the screen, she realized something. She had no more strength to hold on. Emma's mind spun in circles, her thoughts racing, but none of them made sense. She grabbed her phone again, staring at the blank screen, willing herself to pick up the phone and call Ryan. But the message was still there. "I'm seeing someone else." She felt a hollow emptiness in her chest. A part of her wanted to scream, to throw the phone across the room, but the other part just couldn't. The idea of confronting him seemed impossible now. The words "we need to talk" were all she had left. What was there to say? Would he apologize? Or would he simply tell her that it was over? She wanted to hold on to the hope that maybe, just maybe, this was temporary, but deep down she feared it wasn't. She finally typed a message. "Why didn't you tell me?" Then she hesitated. Should she send it? Should she wait? She didn't know anymore. Her heart hurt too much to decide. Her phone buzzed again. A text from a friend. "Are you okay?" But Emma couldn't bring herself to respond. She couldn't tell anyone, not yet. How could she explain what had happened? Her heart ached at the thought of facing anyone else after receiving such a cruel blow. The worst part was the uncertainty. She didn't know if she should confront Ryan or just let it go. Could she let him go? Emma had invested everything into their future, into their love, believing that it could survive anything. But now, she wasn't sure if it had ever been real. What if he had been lying to her all along? Emma couldn't sit still anymore. She stood up abruptly, pacing back and forth across the room. The silence felt even heavier now, each step echoing in her mind, amplifying her fear of what might come next. Was it the end of everything? She couldn't decide. She didn't know if she was strong enough to face the truth. Emma couldn't wait any longer. The silence was unbearable. She knew she had to take a step, any step, to break free from this suffocating feeling. She grabbed her phone again, her fingers trembling as she dialed Ryan's number. Her heart raced as it rang. Each passing second felt like an eternity. Was he even going to answer? Would he hang up on her? She wanted answers, even if they broke her heart further. The line clicked. She heard his voice, calm, distant, like nothing had changed. "Hey, Emma," Ryan said, almost too casually. Her breath caught. He didn't even sound like the person she once knew. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Her throat felt tight, her chest heavy. The call went silent, but she couldn't hang up. The truth was coming, but was she ready to hear it? The days passed, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness. She'd tried to go through the motions, talking to friends, pretending everything was fine, but it felt hollow. Every time she saw someone happy, laughing, she thought of Ryan. It was as if his absence was louder than anything else in her life. She'd always believed their love could survive anything, but now, doubts clouded her every thought. Had it been real? Or was she just a placeholder in his life, until something better came along? The loneliness was suffocating, and no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't escape it. Emma knew something had to change, but she wasn't sure if she was ready for it. Emma's phone buzzed again, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a message from her best friend Lily. "I'm worried about you. We need to talk." Emma stared at the text for a moment, contemplating whether to respond. She knew Lily was just trying to help, but Emma wasn't sure she could explain the weight she carried. How could she put into words what had been eating at her for weeks? Lily had always been the strong one, always offering advice, but now, Emma felt too fragile. She didn't want to burden anyone else with her pain. Still, the loneliness pushed her to reply. "I'm okay, just figuring things out." She put the phone down, but the emptiness remained, gnawing at her insides. The silence in Emma's apartment was deafening. She hadn't heard from Ryan in days, and every time she checked her phone, her heart sank. She found herself scrolling through their old conversations, reading their messages over and over. She could hear his voice in her head, the way he promised her that things would get better, that they'd make it work. But now, those words felt like a distant memory, a hollow echo of what once was. Emma thought about calling him again but hesitated. What would she even say? Would he apologize? Or would he continue to act like nothing was wrong? Each thought felt like a brick in her chest, heavy and unrelenting. She couldn't keep doing this, but letting go seemed impossible. Emma couldn't help but replay the conversation she had with her confidant Lily. "You deserve better, Emma," she had said. "You're worth more than someone who doesn't give you their full heart." But how could Emma let go when every part of her still wanted to believe in what she and Ryan had? The memory of their last conversation, his promise to visit soon to make it work, kept her holding on. She had wanted to believe him so badly, to think that distance didn't matter. But now, it felt like the only thing that mattered. She had built her world around him, around their future. But what if that future was a lie? What if he had never meant the things he said? Emma stood up, pacing the room again. The weight of the decision loomed over her. After hours of pacing, Emma finally collapsed onto her bed, burying her face in the pillow. The tears came again, silent and overwhelming. She had tried so hard to hold on to the hope that Ryan would come back, that their love was worth fighting for. But the reality was setting in. It was slipping through her fingers, and no amount of waiting could change that. Emma had always been the patient one, the one who believed in second chances, in the beauty of love. But now, she wasn't sure if she could keep waiting for someone who didn't seem to care. The thought of moving on, of letting go, terrified her. But perhaps it was the only way to save herself. Emma's phone buzzed again, and this time it was a message from Ryan. Her heart skipped a beat. She hesitated before opening it, feeling a wave of anger and hope mixed together. "I'm sorry. I've been distant, but I've been thinking about us. Can we talk?" Her breath caught in her throat. For a moment, the floodgates of hope threatened to open again, but something held her back. How many times had he said this before? How many apologies had he given without ever truly changing? Emma stared at the message, feeling a knot tighten in her stomach. She wanted to believe him, but she wasn't sure if she could trust him again. She thought of everything he had promised, all the long-distance plans, the future they had built together. Yet here she was, questioning whether any of it had been real. She had to decide, did she give him another chance, or was this the final straw? Emma stared at the message for what felt like an eternity. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard as she debated her response. Should I ask him what's going on? She typed and deleted several sentences before finally settling on, "What does that mean? "You've been distant for weeks." It felt like such a small thing to send, yet the weight of it was overwhelming. As soon as she hit send, her heart started to race. She was opening the door to a conversation that could either bring answers or more pain. She regretted it instantly, feeling vulnerable, exposed. But what else could she do? Silence had become a suffocating presence between them, and Emma couldn't stay in the dark any longer. She waited for a response, each passing second dragging out the uncertainty. Would he explain himself, or was this just another half-hearted attempt to salvage something that wasn't worth saving? Ryan's reply came faster than expected, and Emma's heart skipped a beat when she saw it. "I was seeing someone else. I didn't know how to tell you." The words hit her like a punch to the gut, and she almost dropped her phone. For a few moments, Emma just stared at the message, her mind racing. He was seeing someone else? How had she not known? Her mind flashed back to all the missed calls, the vague answers, the growing distance between them. The betrayal stung deeper than anything she had ever imagined. She thought about all the sacrifices she had made for this relationship, all the nights spent waiting for his calls, the plans they had made. It was all a lie. The realization that the person she loved was capable of this kind of deceit shattered something deep inside her. Emma was no longer sure who she was anymore. Who had she become in this relationship? Emma stood up abruptly, her heart pounding in her chest. She felt like she was suffocating. How could he do this to me? The anger bubbled up, mingling with the pain. She had given him everything, her love, her trust, her patience, and this was how he repaid her. The thought of him with someone else twisted something deep inside her, and for the first time, Emma felt her control slipping. She wanted to scream, to throw the phone across the room, but instead, she just stood there, frozen. Her mind raced with all the questions she wanted to ask him, but it was too late. He had already made his choice. She had been so blinded by love that she had failed to see the cracks in their relationship. The truth stung more than she could have imagined, and now she had to figure out how to move on from it. The next few days were a blur. Emma didn't know how to feel. Her heart still ached for Ryan, but the betrayal was too much to ignore. The quiet, comforting messages they had exchanged over the years now seemed like lies, all of it built on a foundation of deception. Emma avoided her phone, afraid of seeing any more messages from him, but she couldn't stop herself from checking it every few hours. Each time the same mix of emotions washed over her: anger, sadness, confusion. How could I have been so blind? She questioned everything about their relationship, wondering if she had ever truly known him. The longer she avoided confronting him, the more her resentment built. She wanted answers, but she didn't know if she was strong enough to face the truth, or if she even wanted to. Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Ryan's confession still echoed in her mind. I was seeing someone else. But there was more to it, something she couldn't quite place. A part of her felt like he was hiding something, like the truth had been just out of reach. She went through their old messages again, trying to find something, anything, that could explain why he had been distant for so long. As she scrolled, her eyes landed on a message she had missed before, buried deep in their conversation. I'm thinking of moving in with her. Her chest tightened, and she stared at the words, her mind spinning. She hadn't noticed it the first time. Emma felt sick to her stomach. She had always trusted Ryan, believed in his promises, but now it seemed like those words were just part of a much darker reality. He was moving on, and she was left holding onto the past. Emma's mind raced, and the weight of the truth felt unbearable. The more she thought about it, the more she realized that Ryan hadn't just lied. He had been preparing for this moment for a while. Moving in with someone else? Emma couldn't understand how he could go so far without telling her. Every plan they had made, every promise he had whispered to her, felt like a cruel joke now. The silence between them was louder than ever. She tried to call him, but his phone went straight to voicemail. Was he already with her? Was that why he hadn't been answering her calls or texts? Emma felt something break inside of her. The last shred of hope she had been clinging to shattered. He had replaced her, just like that, and she had been left behind, unable to keep up with the changes in his life. Days passed in a haze, each one more suffocating than the last. Emma couldn't bring herself to talk to anyone about what was happening. The loneliness had become a constant companion, but there was something else growing inside her, a quiet, simmering rage. She hadn't been angry before, not really. She had always understood Ryan's struggles, his silence. But now, she saw it all differently. He had taken her love for granted, used her patience and devotion as a shield while he made his plans with someone else. The realization that he had been hiding the truth from her, that he had been so comfortable with his deceit, made her feel small and foolish. Emma wanted to confront him, to make him feel the weight of her anger, but a part of her was terrified. Would he even care? Late at night, Emma received another message from Ryan. This time, it was different. It was a long message, filled with apologies. He explained that he had never meant to hurt her, that he had been confused and lost. He said that he had been struggling with their long-distance relationship and had met someone who made him feel seen in a way she never could. He told her he was sorry, that he hoped she would understand someday. But for Emma, the words felt hollow. How could he have said those things to her for so long, while keeping another relationship a secret? She didn't know if she could ever forgive him. The betrayal ran too deep, and the anger she had been holding in finally began to pour out. She didn't want apologies. She wanted honesty. The message lingered in her mind for hours, but Emma knew what she had to do. She couldn't keep letting him come back into her life with empty words. She couldn't keep believing that things could go back to the way they were. Her trust had been shattered beyond repair, and no apology could fix that. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about her. She had to take back control of her life. She couldn't keep waiting for him, for a love that wasn't coming back. It hurt more than anything she had ever experienced, but she knew it was time to let go. She deleted his number and threw her phone across the bed, feeling a sense of finality wash over her. The first step towards healing was acceptance. Accepting that she was enough, even without him. The anger had built up inside Emma for days, boiling over until she could no longer keep it in. She called Ryan again, this time determined to make him face her pain. The phone rang, and her heart raced as she waited. When he finally answered, his voice was calm, but Emma wasn't ready for that calmness. She needed him to feel what she was feeling. "Why didn't you tell me?" she demanded, her voice shaking but firm. "Why did you keep lying to me? Was it that easy for you?" The words tumbled out in a rush, one after the other, as everything she had kept inside poured out. Ryan stammered an apology, trying to explain, but Emma wasn't listening anymore. She wanted to hurt him the way he had hurt her. She needed him to understand just how much he had shattered her. The tears came, but they weren't just tears of sadness anymore. They were tears of rage, of betrayal, of finally standing up for herself. Ryan tried to speak again, but Emma cut him off. "You don't get to explain anymore, Ryan," she said, her voice breaking. "You don't get to make excuses for this. You don't get to pretend like I was just some person you could forget about." The words hung in the air, each one heavier than the last. Emma could feel the walls closing in around her, as the weight of everything she had been carrying hit her all at once. All the missed calls, the empty promises, the long nights spent wondering if he still cared, it all made sense now, and it hurt more than anything. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "I gave you everything, and you threw it away." She hung up before he could say another word. The silence in the room was deafening, but for the first time in weeks, Emma felt like she had taken back control. Emma sat down on the couch, her phone now forgotten beside her. The adrenaline from the confrontation faded, leaving her with an empty feeling. It wasn't a victory. It wasn't closure. It was just the brutal truth that she had to face. Ryan was gone, and she had to accept it, even if the pain was unbearable. She tried to focus on something else, anything to distract herself from the ache in her chest. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't shake the memory of the life they had built together, the love that felt like it had once been so real. Had it ever been? She wondered. Or was I just holding on to a dream that never existed? The questions swirled around her, unanswered, and she found herself sinking into the quiet, resigned to the fact that she would never have the answers she needed. Emma stood up and walked toward the window, looking out into the night. The city lights flickered in the distance, but everything felt far away, as if she was watching it through a thick fog. She felt disconnected, as if the world had gone on without her. Her phone buzzed again, but she didn't look at it. She didn't want to know. Ryan's name on the screen didn't matter anymore. What mattered was her. The woman who had been so blinded by love that she had forgotten her worth. It was time to rebuild, to learn to love herself again, even if it meant facing the pain alone. Emma turned away from the window, her reflection in the glass staring back at her. It wasn't the same reflection she had known before. This time, there was strength in her eyes, a quiet, hard-won strength. The next morning, Emma woke up feeling like a different person. The anger had faded, replaced by a quiet sadness. She was no longer the woman who had waited, who had clung to a love that was never hers to keep. She was someone new, someone who had been broken but was beginning to piece herself back together. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy. There would be days when she would miss Ryan, when the pain of betrayal would resurface. But Emma knew now that she wasn't defined by him, by their relationship. She was her own person, and she would learn to stand on her own 2 feet. She walked to the kitchen, the soft light of morning casting a gentle glow across the room. She smiled faintly, feeling the first hint of peace in weeks. Maybe I'll be okay after all, she thought. The days after the confrontation were difficult, but Emma felt something beginning to shift. The pain was still there, lingering like an unwelcome shadow, but it wasn't as suffocating as it had been. She spent more time outside, walking through the parks near her apartment, trying to reconnect with herself. Each step felt like a small victory. She had learned to take things one day at a time, and that gave her a sense of peace she hadn't felt in months. Emma started to rediscover the joy of being alone, of having space to think, to breathe. She wasn't quite healed yet, but she was learning how to let go, to free herself from the weight of the past. And with each passing day, she was getting closer to being whole again. A few days later, Emma met Lily for coffee. They hadn't seen each other in a while, and Emma was relieved to finally open up about everything. I never realized how much of myself I had lost in that relationship, Emma admitted, staring at her coffee cup. I spent so much time trying to fix things, trying to make him see me, that I forgot to see myself. Lily nodded, offering her usual comforting smile. You were always enough, Emma, she said gently. And now you're going to find the person you're meant to be outside of anyone else. Emma smiled, grateful for her friend's support, and for the first time in a long while, she felt the beginnings of confidence stirring within her. As the weeks passed, Emma slowly started to build her life again. She threw herself into work, focusing on her passion for graphic design, something she had always put aside during her relationship. She began taking classes, learning new techniques, and rediscovering the joy of creating. One evening, after finishing a particularly difficult project, she sat back in her chair and smiled. The sense of accomplishment was something she hadn't felt in so long. She realized that while the pain of the past still lingered, she was no longer defined by it. She was building a future for herself, and that future was filled with possibilities. The best part? She was doing it all on her own. Emma found herself smiling more these days, even in moments when she wasn't trying. The sadness didn't completely disappear, but it was no longer all-consuming. One evening, she sat in her apartment, watching the sunset from her window, feeling a sense of calm that had eluded her for so long. It was the first time in months that she truly felt at peace with herself. Emma realized that she had grown stronger, not in spite of the heartbreak, but because of it. She had learned how to love herself in a way she hadn't known how to before. And that made all the difference. It wasn't the end of her journey, but it was the beginning of something new. Something better. The phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, and for a moment, Emma's heart skipped. It was a message from Ryan. She hadn't expected to hear from him again, but there it was. She picked it up, her hands steady, and read the words, "I'm sorry. I messed up. I miss you." Emma's first instinct was to respond, to confront him one last time. But then, she put the phone down and smiled softly. She had come so far, and she had learned so much. She wasn't the same person she had been when she first met Ryan, and she wasn't going to go back. She didn't need him anymore. The truth was, she had everything she needed within herself. With one last glance at the phone, Emma turned away, feeling the weight of the past finally lift. Emma had finally reached the point where she could walk through life without constantly looking over her shoulder, expecting Ryan to reappear. She had reclaimed her space, her peace, and her confidence. One evening, while shopping for groceries, she ran into someone she hadn't seen in a long time, Ryan. Her heart skipped a beat, but she quickly steadied herself. He looked the same, his expression apologetic as he fumbled with his words. "I didn't expect to see you here. I've been thinking a lot about us," he said. Emma looked at him for a long moment, feeling the weight of everything between them. She didn't need to say anything. The truth was clear now. She had forgiven him, not for his sake, but for hers. Emma smiled, nodded, and simply said, "It's too late." And with that she turned and walked away, knowing that she was finally free. As Emma walked away from Ryan, she could feel the weight lifting off her chest. She had faced him, not with anger, but with the calm acceptance that it was over. She had done the work to heal, and she was no longer the person she had been when they first met. Walking out of the store, she felt the world shift just a little. It wasn't about closing doors, but about choosing which ones to walk through. She had spent so much of her life waiting for someone else to make her happy. Now, she realized that happiness came from within, from the strength she had found on her own. Emma smiled to herself, a quiet sense of triumph filling her heart. She had finally moved on, not because she wanted revenge, but because she had chosen herself. Months passed, and Emma continued to grow. She focused on her career, on her friendships, and on becoming the person she had always wanted to be. She wasn't perfect, but she was real, and that was enough. One afternoon she sat on her balcony, sipping coffee and watching the world below. It had been a long road, but she had come so far. The pain of her past no longer haunted her. It had become a lesson, something that had shaped her, but not defined her. As she looked out at the horizon, she felt a sense of peace that she had never known before. "This is my life," she thought. "And I'm finally living it for me." It wasn't the life she had imagined when she was with Ryan, but it was the life she was building on her own terms. And that was more than enough. Emma had come to realize that her story wasn't about the love she had lost, but about the love she had found within herself. She had learned to let go of what wasn't meant for her, and to embrace the life that was waiting for her. One evening, while out with friends, she felt a shift. A new chapter was beginning, and it wasn't just about the past anymore. It was about the present and the future. She had created a life full of possibility. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid of it. Emma wasn't perfect, but she was strong, and that was all she needed. The road ahead was hers to walk, and she was ready for whatever came next. The very last time Emma saw Ryan's name on her phone, it was just a reminder of how far she had come. "I miss you," the message said. But Emma had moved on. She no longer felt the need to respond. She had said everything she needed to say when she walked away from him that day in the grocery store. She had chosen herself, and that decision had given her the freedom she had been searching for. Emma took a deep breath, placed her phone down on the table, and smiled. "I'm done," she whispered to herself. "And I'm okay." The phone buzzed one more time, but this time, Emma didn't even look at it. She had found her peace.